If you have a problem with carrying excess weight and you're coming to see us here in Bariatric Clinic, then the nature and quality of food that you and your family eat is going to become very important. As you've probably heard me say many times, the most important predictor of success with control of your body weight is the dietary pattern that you adopt. One term that you may hear used from time to time is when we refer to ultra-processed food. It's important that you're armed with some information about these foods, so in this video I'm going to discuss what ultra-processed foods are, how to recognise them, and how they can handicap your progress towards long-term weight control. Before starting, I've got a book recommendation for those interested in learning more about ultra-processed foods, or UPFs as they're more easily referred to. Chris Van Chulukin's Ultra-Processed People is a very accessible introduction to how the modern food environment and its profit before health premise is driving metabolic illness worldwide. I've leaned heavily on it for the content of this video. His book's well researched and scientifically referenced. He's a medical doctor who cares about data and proof. 50 years ago, most food eaten by humans was food prepared and cooked at home. So meats, vegetables, fish, eggs, homemade or locally made breads and grain products, home baking, things we loosely call whole foods, things made from foods that your great-grandmothers would recognise as food. Now, slowly, over the last 50 years or so, food preparation has increasingly been moved from home to large, often multinational food producers. There's a dizzying array of foods that have become widely available, cheaply available to all of us, including cereals, supermarket biscuits, cakes, bars, pasta sauces, frozen meals, supermarket bread, sweets, desserts, and pretty much almost any other food you can think of. These foods contain novel molecules, most of which have never before been encountered by humans in our history. So we've got refined starches, hydrolyzed protein isolates, synthetic emulsifiers, gums, humectants, foaming agents, anti-caking agents, and countless other things. At first, this seemed like a good idea. So food could be made more cheaply at large scale. It seemed to be easy to store and have long shelf life, and it could be distributed to the corners of the earth. However, with time, the large companies that make these foods discovered two things that they realised could unlock massive profits. Firstly, they discovered that using advanced processing techniques, they could substitute expensive natural ingredients for cheap substitutes based on large-scale grain crops. So, for example, why does mayonnaise from the supermarket have vegetable gum, wheat starch and maize thickener instead of just egg, olive oil and lemon juice? It's because cutting costs on expensive ingredients unlocks profits. And secondly, they discovered that when certain foods are processed a certain way with an optimal combination of sugar, salt and fat, they become irresistible to humans, leading to the new term moreish, or as the makers of Pringles so blatantly admits, once you pop, you can't stop. Scientifically, we use the term hyperpalatable to mean foods that are custom designed to tingle our deepest neurological pleasure centres. So we're conditioned to eat more and buy more. And when we buy more, food companies' profits go up. So how do we recognise UPFs? Well, they make up about 70% of what supermarkets sell and possibly about 50% of a Kiwi diet, although we don't have great evidence on consumption patterns in this country. A basic rule of thumb that Chris Van Chulukin gives is that if it comes in a box or a bag or wrapped in plastic, and it has at least one ingredient that you wouldn't find in a home kitchen, then it's UPF. So it's almost everything in the middle of the supermarket. It's most of the frozen section, most of the bread section, and quite a lot else. Likewise, if it's got a health claim on the packet, then it's probably UPF. Are all UPFs uniformly bad? No, of course not. So take wheat biscuit cereals, of which there are a few brands in this country, some more popular than others. Looking at the ingredient list of one popular wheat biscuit, it's got whole grain wheat, 97%, sugar, salt, barley malt extract, vitamins, niacin, thiamine, riboflavin, folate, mineral, iron. So do I have barley malt extract in my kitchen? Well, I don't happen to. So why does this wheat biscuit have this? So this wheat biscuit cereal is in fact a UPF. Is it the worst in the world? No, it's not. But I would make two illustrative points about this much-loved Kiwi breakfast. Firstly, why bother with a barley malt extract? Well, without it, it's nowhere near as palatable, and you might not feel like eating quite as many of them. And secondly, why has it got vitamins added to it? Well, many processed foods unfortunately have their natural vitamins stripped out by the processing itself. So they have to be added back in an additional layer of processing. Now, you can probably do a lot worse than a wheat biscuit cereal for breakfast, although it does depend on what you have it with. But my point about the very nature of ultra-processing still applies. So why am I warning you about UPFs? What makes them a potential problem for you as one of our metabolic patients? In a nutshell, most UPFs are purpose designed to cause you to overconsume them, leading to increased calorie intake, reduced satiety, and you guessed it, persistently high insulin levels. So why do humans overconsume UPFs? Well, it turns out that they are crafted with very particular and deliberate characteristics to encourage us to keep eating. And the foods themselves have undesirable metabolic effects. First, and very importantly, they will often have very specific, deliberate ratios of salt, sugar, and fat, the exact ratio that hits the human brain dopamine centre to cause maximum pleasure. If you've ever noticed a supermarket pasta, perhaps, that seems extraordinarily sweet, or perhaps a dessert that seems a little bit more salty than expected, then you've discovered that exact ratio. UPFs tend to be very soft, with no food matrix, so they can be eaten very quickly. This is very important for those hoping to profit from these foods, because when we eat quickly, we tend to eat more of that food. However, it means we take in more sugar and refined carbohydrate at the same time, and so we get a higher insulin level as a result. The stripping out of food fibre matrix by the processing also means the food never reaches the bottom end of our small intestine, so our fullness hormones are not activated as well. Once again, this means that we consume more. They require minimal or no preparation, once again meaning more rapid and unconscious consumption. And they're almost always high in refined carbohydrates and added sugars, worsening our insulin response and prolonging metabolic disease. Being very cheap with a long shelf life, they're purchased disproportionately by the less well-off out of necessity, further entrenching obesity as a disease most commonly linked with poverty. This results in UPFs displacing other important whole foods from the dietary pattern of some people. So if I was to summarise, we're all surrounded, immersed in a food environment manipulating us with false claims and fake tastes, an environment that's engineered to drive excess consumption. If we don't understand and resist this, we pay with our health. These foods are problematic for everyone that I see in clinic. So what can you do? Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. Whole foods are the foods I mentioned earlier. You can think of these foods your great-grandmother would have recognised as food. So meats, fish, eggs, fruit and vegetables, nuts, dairy, and minimally processed grains. You need to seek out and buy these foods, prepare, cook and store these foods as much as you can for yourself and your family. This means preparation, it means knowledge of how to prepare food at home, knowledge of how to cook, the time and the means to do this. If you make your own food, it generally retains its goodness and you know what's in it. I understand there are barriers to this for many of you. These barriers could include cost, time, equipment such as stove, fridge, freezer. It might be the knowledge of how to do these things, but with or without our help, you need to do this. You will never gain control of your weight and you will not succeed long-term after bariatric surgery on a diet of ultra-processed food. What I can tell you is this. If you avoid UPFs for a year, you lose a taste for them. You'll find them too strong and you'll find the fake tastes off-putting. Even if you think you want it, you won't actually enjoy eating it. Getting completely off UPF is the perfect way to spend your bariatric honeymoon in the first year after bariatric surgery. We look forward to discussing this more when we see you in clinic.